All right, Nick, it's August. This is your Cellar series description. Scorching deals! Here we go. My Corey in the afternoon. Okay. I feel fantastic. Let's talk about the wine. Okay, it's August. One of my favorite months of the year for just drinking wine and not doing a lot else. So with that in mind, being in the backyard of a good customer, a friend of the shop, we're very happy to be here. August is quiet. It's quiet around the shop. People take a lot of time off. And I feel like they kind of dig into some good wines. June and July tend to be busy with the holidays, grad parties, all that jazz. But August is the time to get into the good stuff. So here we go. We've got 6 different wines as per usual. It's less than 150 bucks after the 20% discount and before the tax. But yeah, let's jump in. So this is Peltrinieri. So we've worked with Peltrinieri for several years now, but I had a dinner about 2 weeks ago with Alberto Peltrinieri. And Alberto is the 3rd generation farmer in Lambrusco in this area called Sorbara. And Sorbara is, I'll back up. Lambrusco had a big heyday, I don't know, about 30 some years ago, where they were shipping millions of cases of this really frothy, deeply colored kind of really grapey wine, which there's nothing wrong with that, but there's not a whole lot right with it either. It's just a little coarse, not quite as elegant as it could be. And in a way, this grape variety that they use, which is Sorbara, is a light pink, and it's just the prettiest of colors. And just this crisp, dry, focused kind of mineral, sparkling rosé. So it's made in the champagne method, which is very different than all of the other kind of wines that Alberto and his family make, which are not made in that kind of labor-intensive champagne method to get the bubbles. So it's under a classic kind of cork and cage finish. But the wine is called Grosso, and it spends 24 months on its lees, like a classic champagne. And it just has this kind of depth and richness to it while being super fresh at the same time. It's not heavy or weighty by any means. It's actually quite zippy. I think the wines that Alberto makes across the board have like really bright acidity, which is really, really refreshing come poolside. But just a really lovely wine and an absolutely like fantastic man. Like I said, had a chance to do dinner with him, and sometimes when you meet the winemaker, everything starts to taste a little bit better, but you really get a great context for what the idea is behind the vision of the winery. 17 hectares that they farm, right outside of Modena. So, Ferraris, balsamic vinegar, prosciutto, and Lambrusco. Some really amazing things coming from that part of Italy. So, moving on to Pazzo Barantes. This is an Albarino that we tasted about a month ago, and we're just kind of like, whoa, this is, well, first off, it's a crazy deal. I mean, if you look online, this is normally like about a $50 or $60 bottle alone, and you're getting it for half that price before the discount even. So a really, really crazy deal with Pazzo Barantes. So they started making this wine in 1991. It's an old family farm to the Murrieta, the family who owns Murrieta in Rioja, a really, really important traditional producer in Rioja. But it is a 15th century castle that has vineyards all around it, and they finally realized like we should be releasing wines from this vineyard as well. So the way in which they do it is a little bit different than a lot of the Albarinos that we see. Also, the Albarino, from Galicia. This is northwestern Spain. Let's kind of like back up here. Northwestern Spain, kind of green Spain, right along the ocean, just above Portugal. In this area called the Salnes Valley, which kind of just opens up to the Atlantic. It's a really kind of lovely coastal area there that makes incredible white wines. So what they do a little bit differently here is they allow a little bit to go through malolactic fermentation, which kind of broadens the wine, brings some richness and depth into the overall package. And they age a little bit of it in concrete. A little bit of it in acacia barrel. They do it about 7 months, in stainless steel. 3 of those months are on the lees for richness, and then the rest is in acacia barrel for just more depth and kind of weight. So a pretty substantial Albarino, which is kind of saying a lot because Albarino already kind of like leans in a little bit to that kind of that style. So moving on to Cobalt, we're going to Slovenia, Eastern Slovenia, and this is a wine that again we tasted just a few weeks ago. We worked with Cobalt kind of throughout the years, but we're just kind of like sitting out on the loading dock and tasting a couple wines. We're like, whoa. What is this little guy? Like it's like awesomely affordable and absolutely delicious, and it's Ferment. And Ferment is a great grape variety. We see it more commonly in Hungary. In the area like where they make Tokaj Asu, but it makes really, really high quality wines in this eastern part of Slovenia, the Styrian part of Slovenia. It's a get my notes here. It's basically a guy named Bojan Kobal who makes it. He makes about 833 cases of it, and it's all indigenous yeast, and they grow it on sand and clay. So there's a little bit of spice to it, a little bit of kind of like weight that sits just maybe a touch more than this right here, but maybe not as much as the Viognier after it. But just a really, really lovely wine from Slovenia, and we are continue to see really, really fantastic wines from Slovenia, which is exciting for us, And what they always bring is great value. So, that's Cobalt. Moving on. So we are moving on to the Viognier from La Muralla. And Muralla is a producer that we normally work with their red wines, and they're the producer in a lot of ways, along with Luca Ferraris for us, that make the best Ruque that we can source, at any point throughout the year. And Ruque is a great variety that is really kind of a specialty of one part of Piedmont. A lot of times when you think about Piedmont, which northwestern Italy, you're thinking about Barbera, you're thinking about Nebbiolo, Dolcetto. You don't really think about Ruque, but he is certainly a Ruque specialist. He plays around a little bit with white wines, makes a really, really lovely Chardonnay, which you've had on the shelf for years. But this is our first opportunity to work with this Viognier. Viognier comes from the northern Rhone primarily. You'll see it kind of throughout the world. It's an international grape variety now, kind of plucked from obscurity in a way. But it has a floral kind of quality to the aromatics on the nose. It has a textural depth to it, which is very reminiscent of the wines that you would see in the northern Rhone. But it also has this bright freshness to it, which I think is kind of I guess you could attribute it to the this is a very young vineyard. It was planted in 2019, and young vines give you really young, energetic fruits, oftentimes with kind of big, bright, fresh acidity, which hold on. All right, I'm coming back to you guys. Live TV, this is what happens. And I'm naked apparently, so anyways, La Miraja, great Viognier. Anyways, moving on to Mas Gabinel. Mas Gabinel is Thierry Rodriguez. Thierry Rodriguez farms in the appellation of Fougères, so we're along France's Mediterranean coast, and this is the Languedoc. The Languedoc is kind of like the workhorse wine region of southern France. It definitely has a lot more kind of production, I would say, than that you'll see in Provence and kind of that southern Rhone area. It's just it's an important area for France for all different wine styles. Thierry started his career as a wine merchant. He was the son of a winemaker, so always kind of had that in his blood. But it was really kind of in 1997 when he kind of decided to purchase a few hectares of land, and he has grown it to about 20 hectares of organic farming, where he grows beautiful white and red wines. But this is his old vine, or Vieille Vigne Carignan, and Carignan has this kind of rustic freshness to it, which is really, really unique. He does half this wine in carbonic maceration, which is like the style of winemaking that you'll see in Beaujolais, and half kind of conventional fermentations. The carbonic brings this really, really like primary and lively kind of quality to it. There's a little bit of volatile acidity to it. There's a little bit of like Brett to it. But whenever you have those aromatic qualities that are faults in a way, but when you have just a touch of it here and just have a touch of it there, it really kind of elevates this wine into this really, really lovely red. Definitely chill this down really, really special stuff. He makes 316 cases of this wine right here, so it is a small production wine. Yeah. Finishing up in Spain, we're in Navarra. Navarra is the area where like Pamplona is. It's just underneath that southwestern corner of France. It is hot and dry in certain parts of it, and it has kind of that Basque maritime influence from the Atlantic Ocean, kind of right around the corner. So this is all Garnacha from 3 young winemakers. This is Azul Garanza, and they farm at 550 meters above sea level, which is pretty high in the grand scheme of things. In Spain, that's kind of really touching kind of higher reaches of elevation that are productive in most parts of Europe for red grape wines. So they'd spend 6 months, in concrete fermentations, and then finishing up with 6 months in amphora and 6 months in neutral barrel. I'm sorry, the fermentation is not 6 months, but 6 months in amphora, 6 months in neutral large barrel, all organic from 40-year-old Garnacha vines. What I like about this wine is it kind of reminds me of the first time I tasted it. I was at a tasting, this past, earlier this summer, and I had this amazing kind of lineup of wines in front of me. And whenever you are exposed to, dozens and dozens of really, really great wines, and then certain wines kind of poke their heads out and kind of just say, listen to me and kind of check me out. This was absolutely one of those wines. I loved, kind of the label on it. It has this really lovely kind of thistle thing kind of going on, but it's just a really, really special organic wine that you can tell is very much handmade in northern Spain. So that is the run of it. This is your live TV August moment, poolside. Yes, so you can pick it up starting tomorrow. One quick thing that I want to mention is to a good luck and best wishes to my production manager, Nick Thomas, as he and his soon-to-be bride get married in a couple weeks in Sonoma County. So good luck, Nick. You can pick it up this weekend.